Yep.
The first thing I want to do is have everyone say their name, because this is going to get transcribed, and that way the transcriber will be able to associate voices with names. So I'm Bob DeVellis.
I'm James Ringelspaugh.
I'm Wes Lambe.
Danny Gotham.
I think our voices are all distinct enough to work.
I think
Okay,
so.
you were saying.
What was I saying?
You were talking about Irwin?
Irwin Smaji.
Oh, Irvin Smaji. Yeah, that's really about the only toolage I've had. I spent a week at his shop with a group of other folks, about 10 of us. Went and literally lived in his shop. I stayed in his attic and just went through all his, basically, he just told us everything he knows about building guitars. And we watched and we tapped and we felt wood and we saw what he does and we conversed amongst ourselves. It was only a week long, but it was quite enriching. It was a heck of a good experience. But that's really the only, I don't even know if you would call it formal. That's the only training pretty much I've had. Everything else is kind of self-taught.
Well, it's working, obviously.
Indeed.
And you trained up in British Columbia for a while, right?
Mm-hmm. I did. I'd been building for maybe 6 or 7 years before I went to the school, just out of books. So I already had a catalog of 10 or 11 things that I built. But it was more of a luthier vacation type thing, you know.
It was the best.
It was absolutely fantastic. I would love to do something like that again.
And you actually taught there for a while too?
Yeah, I stayed on as sort of a teacher intern after the course that I went for, a 4-month course, and I ended up staying for another 3 months on top of that.
Very cool. But both of you were building before you went?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we start by, I asked you guys to bring something along, and why don't we talk about them?
All right, cool. So yeah, this is just a little concert uke. I think it's 15-inch scale length, made out of Spele and mahogany neck. What I really like about this is the finish. I'm quite turned off by the dipped-in plastic look of a lot of guitars. I know that's the industry standard, and I can appreciate them, and I do them for customers that like them. But this is just a simple sprayed-on shellac. Feels really nice and smooth. I absolutely love it, and I want to proselytize that a little bit. So,
What kind of shellac?
it's just blonde flake shellac. Yeah. I think I got it from LMI, maybe.
You sprayed it on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I either brush on, or this I think was sprayed on with an airbrush, just because it's such a small instrument. It's easy, just, you know. Yeah, so, and nothing else, no pore filling or anything like that. I like the feel, the texture of the wood. And that's that. Simple, easy, smells good. It's not toxic, you know. It's great. So.
Yeah, I keep a, for thinning that stuff down, I've got a bottle of like, not like moonshine, but
Everclear.
Everclear.
Indeed.
Everybody asks about the Everclear.
Yeah, they quit selling the good stuff here in my ABC stores. Yeah, you have to get it elsewhere now.
What was it, like 100% ethyl alcohol?
190 proof, yeah.
Well, I play with Peter Ostruszko. He has this mandolin that he built with this guy named Peter White, who lives out in Arizona. And I've heard him talk about this, like when he talks about the mandolin, Peter helped build it. It's like an A model with an oval hole. It's a real simple looking instrument, but it's got this really deep color on it. And apparently there's this coffee that he took, and I mean, I'm not kidding you, and that's the color. He got the color from this coffee, so that's really interesting. Is that cost effective to do the finish like that?
Yeah, it's, you know, shellac flakes are, I won't say they're the cheapest finish in the world, but yeah, I went through maybe a pint jar, if that. No, not even that. Maybe a half pint jar of a 1.5 pound cut. So it's only three or four coats there, just nice and thin.
So it doesn't. It's time effective. It doesn't take a whole lot of time to do it.
Nope, not at all. No. I think I did all the finish in one day.
Is that a maple rosette?
Yep. Maple, Brazilian rosewood fretboard.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it's really dark.
the first one you built?
Yep.
And
There will be a lot more to come. I
Yeah.
absolutely love these.
yeah,
little
ukuleles are really getting to be, real popular. Yeah, yeah. And there's a market for it. Now, how much would you sell that for?
I wouldn't even know right now.
Uh-huh.
Probably just a few $100, $300-$400 maybe.
Yeah. I'd buy one.
I would too.
For
I think
really,
there really is demand right in that
That's right.
segment because
Yeah.
there's a lot of cheap stuff that is pretty but you can't play.
Right, right.
And then, you can spend $5,000 on some incredible,
Yeah.
and, the cheap stuff is great for the tourists.
Mm-hmm.
The real expensive stuff is great for the millionaires. And there's this huge gap.
That's
where
right.
Real
That's
people
right.
want real instruments.
Indeed. Well, I am a convert. I absolutely love this little thing. So,
Yeah.
and it's perfect because I sell a lot of wood on eBay. It's kind of how I finance all this, and these are the offcuts. I've got so much wood that it's just too small for guitars.
Oh, yeah.
I think I
That's
bought some
just-
Brazilian rosewood, a fingerboard from you.
Really?
Did you sell on
Could be.
eBay? Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
shabby
I
chic
did.
guitars. Yeah.
I did.
Ah, I like that. I hope it was a good one.
Yeah, it was good. Worked out great.
I'm glad you guys aren't slugging it out.
No,
Over
no.
some trade on
Yeah.
All right, that's the small.
Yeah, yeah.
You said you had a medium and a large.
Yeah.
Let's see
indeed.
what you got.
So you brought some Brazilian from him?
Yeah. I got a fingerboard.
Is that prohibitively as expensive as it is? I mean, it's real expensive stuff.
I
Right?
think it was maybe
Really?
$50. I can't really remember that.
Okay, so it's got.
Fingerboard and bridge size stuff is still around, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's just the-
expensive wood.
That's
That
finger,
sense.
$50 for a fingerboard.
So this is one I built for myself. This is medium, just this pretty standard classical size guitar. What I wanted to do was have I like classical guitars. It just feels like home to me. The size and the tone, but I wanted something with a shorter scale so it would have lower tension than a standard steel string, and fit somewhere in between those two, between a classical and a standard steel string. So this is this is a 22.5 or 23.5 inch scale. I forget what kind of spruce is on top. I want to say Engelmann, but it could be Sitka's because it's getting kind of dark now. And it's French polish, bird's eye maple, backsides, cherry for the neck, yeah. So this is what I built for myself, pretty much. And yeah, if anybody wants to see play.
So you, as a player, you're more comfortable with classical guitars?
Yeah, it just feels like home to me. Yeah.
Sure.
Sounds great. It's real bright like that. Crisp.
Projects beautiful. You got a bevel in there, I see.
Yeah, a little armrest bevel.
So it's kind of between it's like a triple O kind of maybe it's double O kind of, but it's not well it's not really a triple O, but it's sort of in that
X-brace
ballpark.
back too.
Yeah. So yeah, it's about it really is very similar to classical guitar in
Right.
the size of the body.
Yeah. How'd you come up with the headstock design on that?
Just did it.
Just there wasn't any.
No impetus or anything. It's not really based on anything. It kind of evolved over time into that, what you see there.
Is that your standard headstock design right there?
Pretty much, yeah.
Uh-huh. That's really interesting. And you have a bolt-on neck.
Yep. They're all bolt-ons.
Yeah. That's an interesting concept.
Do you want to pick?
I had one and I done lost it. Yeah, I got a guitar Gavin Baird made for me that has a bolt-on neck on it. There you go. That's fine.
speed metal on them?
I never did. When I was doing mandolin, I was trying. I named my dog Tremolo
Oh, yeah.
because I said the only way I'll ever have a tremolo that anyone will ever admire is if I name a cute animal Tremolo.
No, this says 23. That is the 23rd instrument that you've made?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow, I really like
I
this.
do the same thing, and just number. Doesn't
Yeah,
matter what
indeed.
kind of it is, just
Exactly.
instrument
That's
total.
helpful, I think, to buyers.
So yeah, the 23rd. I think the uke is number 55.
Is that a little deeper than? Is that more like a classical guitar depth for the body?
I believe so. Yeah, I think
Okay.
I think I kept it right at 4 inches. If I'm
Okay.
not mistaken.
This is a hard act to follow, especially for me.
Yeah.
But I do not feel them.
Do you know the Nick Lucas guitars? You ever play those?
Yeah, those are the little L double L or
They
whatever.
were small, but they're really, really.
Oh,
yeah.
they're super deep ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Almost looks like a Adirondack top. Is it? It's real
Like I said, I
wide.
think I want to say it's Engelmann,
Yeah.
but I'm not absolutely sure.
No, I don't know.
I'll keep track.
When did you make this?
I go by density and not by species.
Right.
That I don't know. It's got to be a few years now. I'm sorry, I just wanted to look into
Sure.
September 2010.
Very nice. Plays beautifully.
Thanks.
Is there like a combination of woods that you've tried different combinations in terms of back and sides and top, and
I started out that way,
Yeah.
but I don't think in terms of that anymore. Now
Really?
I try to think in terms of just stiffness and density, which
Right.
track really well together for
Right.
spruces, and just how heavy and stiff the back and sides are. And of course, if they ring forever, that's always a bonus. But
And what's the scale like, guys?
it's either 22 and a half or 23 and a half.
So it is a short.
Yeah, it's
scale.
real short scale.
Sure makes it easy to play.
Indeed.
And it's mighty pretty.
Low tension was the goal there.
And you've got medium strings on it?
Probably lights.
Yeah, probably. They feel pretty light.
the headstock thing is real interesting because that for some people it's totally meaningless, but for the others it's kind of like this little signature thing. People see it. And,
It's very cool.
it's,
I mean,
it's very unique.
I'm just realizing now that it's a guitar. The R
Yeah, indeed.
is outlining
Yeah.
the star.
Yeah.
That's a very attractive.
Yeah.
Do you do the veneer on the back of the headstock on all of them?
If sometimes,
Yeah.
like that uke doesn't have it.
Right.
But yeah, about half the time if I feel like it.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with that right there?
Oh sure, yeah, absolutely.
Well,
So we've seen small.
All right, small.
We've seen
That's medium. So this is,
Can large be far behind? This is a baritone?
yeah, this is a baritone. This is basically what I do with the shabby sheet guitars. This is a good example. This I have to preface it by saying this was a prototype, so the fit and finish is not. This wouldn't be released into the wild today, but this was the first one I did. I started out with just a dreadnought, a cheapo import dreadnought. Had a plywood top that was collapsing, a bad neck that was bent. So I routed the top off and replaced it with a Adirondack spruce, and built a new neck for it with a. It doesn't say, but I bet it's 27-inch scale. Tune C to C. So a fourth down, is that a fourth? 2 full steps down. And then just French polish the top, and I think I sprayed the neck with the shellac, just like I did that uke. And this is did an armrest bevel as well. So this is pretty much what's coming out of my shop today, with the besides the fit and finish with the binding. That's much improved now. But this is the kind of guitar that I'm producing today for Shabby Chic.
Now, did you make a new neck for that?
Yep.
But on some you're actually grafting in a link, an additional.
Yeah, and I was able to do that. Actually, some of the guitars that I had, the way the truss rod rode up into the headstock, I was able to add an extra length of an extra length of neck and fingerboard, and still have plenty of truss rod.
Wow.
But no longer. They changed the design. So
really?
now,
you're
before then and after then. So now I have to build a whole new neck
Yeah.
for them all, which isn't really that much more difficult than grafting on a little bit. So it just takes a little more time to do the carving, which I don't mind at all. It's pleasant exercise.
It's a 27-inch scale.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 15 fret to the body. So yeah, I added 1 fret, which is that make it about a 27-inch scale. So I take 12 fret guitars, and I can go up to 28.5-inch scale to go down 2.5 steps B to B, and those end up being 14 frets of the body, so it works out really well. But the dreadnought size, it's play for yourself.
So you get the back and sides from what?
From just a cheapo import guitar. I think this was a Ibanez.
Okay. Wow.
It sounds so different.
Yeah.
It's like what I'm expecting to hear isn't coming up.
Well, Wes built me one on a marked body. Yeah.
Yeah, I did a similar thing.
Very nice.
What gave you the idea to do this type of thing? Just you had a bunch of broken bodies around. And
No, I want to say I wanted to make some guitars with armrest bevels and wedge-shaped bodies. Some of the features that none of the factories do.
Yeah.
And I thought that would be a good way to start. And once I started doing that, I realized, well, why not just extend the scale like that a little bit? You have baritone for cheap, or put a new top on. I can voice it how I like,
Yeah. So you can make what kind of price range are those things? So,
Well, I'm not to do the full replacing of the top and a new neck would probably put that at about $1,500, which is probably a little more than folks are willing to spend. But I sell my baritones now for $700 to $800 generally. So yeah, you get a solid top instrument, baritone can't be beat. Price wise.
That's
Price point.
sensational.
Yeah.
One of the things that really attracted me to you as a builder is people can get, and you as well, with both of you can get these kind of exotic features that are typically associated with these megabucks guitars for within the reach of real musicians, which is
Indeed. Yep. It's a value proposition for sure.
So you sell one of these between $700 and $800?
Well, not with a replaced top, but yeah. I take a Recording King guitar. They make a good solid top guitar with the back and sides of plywood. But yeah, basically build a new neck for it and ship it out the door for between $700 and $800.
Do you have to do any other intonation things to the bridge or saddle? Do you have anything around there?
When I was grafting in an extra piece of the neck, I used to have to fiddle with the bridge slot, the saddle slot, or glue a little extra piece of bone to it. But now I just put the 14th fret up a little bit, so it's not exactly 14 frets of body. It's 14 point. Yeah, exactly. Compensation is built into the fretboard.
Nice.
It's really a great idea because a lot of inexpensive guitars have about half of the stuff right. It's just working out all the little nuances that they can't do in a cost-effective way. Starting with the blocks, which is often a decent blocks,
Yeah.
and then doing what it takes to make it a really great instrument. So very interesting idea.
Yeah, what I've noticed with a lot of the imports, especially the Chinese imports, there's a lack of sophistication with the setup. You know, the intonation's a little off, or you know, the nut slots aren't carved down quite right, and that's something that once you dial it in, those are usually pretty good instruments.
The other place where they come up short a lot is on the frets. The frets will shred your fingers on some of those guitars.
Shabby chic.
Indeed, that was a bit of a throwaway name, but people keep buying them.
Well, I like it.
I think it was a design. It's a design movement back in I think the 80s. People would take good old furniture and spruce it up.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I felt like I was doing the same thing.
What'd you tune it to?
I tried drop D. Whatever. I mean, it's just you know what this reminds me of is I've played a few mandocellos in my day. It's got that kind of vibe to it. Yeah, it's like it sounds like the ocean or something. It's this big sound. Yeah.
And that's a laminated mahogany body?
Yep, sure enough.
Well.
Serial number 999784003.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's sweet.
It's fun to pick up different things like that because you can't go to your old standby.
Right.
You gotta sort of re-envision how you're gonna approach playing the guitar. I like that thing, that aspect about doing things a little different.
Sure enough. Well, that's my stuff.
Okay.
Small, medium, and large.
Wes, what you got?
We'll start with small.
Small, medium, and large. Yeah. This is a parlor guitar, obviously. Yeah.
Parlor size, short scale. I think it's 24 and a half. Adirondack top and Brazilian back inside.
Wow.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That is beautiful wood.
Yeah, they got a bunch of, 4 or 5 sets that I bought about 15 years ago that I've been saving. And then last year I decided to tap into it. I made this one, the Dreadnought that I brought. Check it out.
Now that, have you settled on a certain kind of logo? Or, I mean, because that looks
I've got one that I did, I designed it when I was 14.
right.
That I used, and it sort of lost its magic for me. So I've got a guy that's working on a new logo.
I know a guy that would just kill this guitar. I got a friend up in Philadelphia named Ari Eisinger. He's this incredible blues guitar player, and he loves. He spent a fortune for one of those old Stellas, you know. But yeah, real, kind of funky.
I like that shape and the size of that.
Oh yeah.
Comfortably for me. I like.
Yeah, it's
personally if I'm gonna sit with a.
Look at the waist on that sucker.
Speaking of Stellas, my first guitar was was one of those crummy harmony Stellas. What did you guys start on? What were your first instruments?
My first guitar was a import Stratocaster that my grandmother bought me. I think I was like 11, maybe, and it was terrible. I spray painted about 15 different colors. The first real guitar I think I got was a Squire Strat from Japanese made, and it was good. It lasted me all through college actually.
I think I had an Epiphone acoustic. Nothing really exciting about that.
My Stella was.
It's been run over.
That's been
Sort
run
of held
over.
together with duct tape. That lasted. Still got it somewhere.
Wow.
Just in case it's
You put it back together?
well, that's the playing condition, I guess.
sometime I gotta get him to come back here. You gotta meet this guy. He is something else. I say he plays Blind Blake better than Blind Blake. I mean, he's crazy good. That's sweet. It looks like the front looks like a New Yorker. The back looks kind of like a double O or something. You know what I mean? From the lower bout down, you know what I mean?
Right.
But if you look at like from just the top forward, that looks a little bit like a New Yorker, but it's a little. That is a really cool body design. I like it.
I'm going to make it really round, at least on the lower bout.
Right.
The idea is sort of like a speaker cone type thing.
Yeah.
So did you have to make the neck block and the tail block rounded off?
Yeah.
I did that with that uke. I didn't think, because I've always done pretty flat on the top at least. But I didn't realize how many things that would affect to just
Right.
round that stuff off. Especially
Getting the neck angle straight too.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Really nice.
All hide glue, nitrocellulose finish on the body. I do a true oil finish on the neck.
It's
It
great.
ends up being a lot like shellac.
Yeah,
It's
hard
the
dry.
feel. It doesn't quite.
This
It
is
doesn't
veneer.
get sticky or anything.
That's very cool. So, how do you guys?
Yeah, I love the way that feels.
How would you describe the mix of sort of old methods and new methods that you use in building? When you're talking about hide glue, that's obviously real classic
Right.
stuff. You also do things like 21 string instruments, which is obviously innovative stuff.
Yeah, I don't really know if you can draw a line, or at least and be a productive shop. I think if you are going to make everything out of hide glue, sandpaper or hand files, you're going to put so much time into it that you couldn't really sell it for a reasonable price. What that would be. But yeah, well, but, I don't know. It's a tricky question. So I don't think I do it exactly the same way every time. There's certain things that I do. On the electric guitars, most all of those are cut, programmed in the computer. All the design work's done. Everything lines up perfectly when you're done, which is not always the case when you use hand tools. So, acoustic guitar, I think I do try to harken back to doing the more hand files and hide glue. It's a little more rewarding to do. And also, I don't think it's necessarily lends itself to being programmed into electric guitars. The routing and everything is sort of 2D, and whereas these, it would be almost impossible, if not for a small shop, to program anything in there and have it make any sense to do it that way.
Well, it seems inherently sensible to draw upon all the tools you have available, including traditional ones and bring new ones, and use them, draw them in as they get the job done most effectively.
Right. And I did an oval sound hole on another acoustic guitar, or different odd shapes, and that would have been almost impossible. Not impossible with hand tools, but you put it on the machine, it just does it.
Indeed. Yeah. Well, I don't use any CNC, not yet, anyway. That's something I'm sure I'll add to my repertoire at some point when I have the cash for it. But yeah, I started out being very non-traditional, a lot of abrasives and carving, sculpting that way, just digging stuff out, hogging stuff out with whatever I could. But the more I build, the more I realize the traditional methods are, if not the best, they're much more zen, much more meditative to work with.
I think that's true too. I definitely love, spending days carving braces and sort of voicing tops and that sort of thing. So this is another standard 6-string dreadnought, standard size. Another Brazilian rosewood back inside.
Another nice
Yeah,
set.
some really nice
that
Brazilian
top.
rosewood.
Got pretty lucky. I'm pretty lucky with these couple sets here. And this one I sort of went all out on. It's got like a flamed ebony bridge, and mammoth ivory nut and saddle. So sort of all the fancier, which I've never really done and never really sort of been saving up for the last 15 years to do a couple of.
Which of those things make a difference in sound, do you think? You know, like high glue.
I think it does to a certain extent. You can make a great sounding guitar without it. And in some ways, it's sort of a selling point. But I do think that it does have a sound to it, and it's the way that it was done. That's the way people like to see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Indeed, yeah. People will balk if not. Yeah, I think it depends a lot on the maker. You know, it's just other tools in your tool chest, and everybody uses their tools differently. So.
And different. I don't think I've ever. This is maybe the first guitar I've done with mammoth ivory.
Mm-hmm.
I've played. I've got old instruments with elephant ivories, old mandolins, and bone and tusk and all that stuff.
I'm not sure I really like the mammoth ivory sound. I
It's
think
not too brittle.
it gets kind of brittle and it kind of it's not as crisp in some ways, and it's a little hard to put your finger on exactly.
So that's a lot of weight there to the bridge.
It's actually lighter.
Oh, really?
Not at least this set that I got was a little bit lighter than most of the bone I have, which kind of gives it a little plasticky kind of. Maybe I'm not really a mammoth ivory kind of guy.
Is it getting harder to get materials?
It's
In
getting
some ways,
easier.
Really?
it's easier just to find what you want, but it's harder to pay the price that you're doing.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, the internet kind of opened up a lot of opportunities. Plus, buying and selling wood, I go and visit a lot of different suppliers, which I didn't used to do. You know, so it's easier. I bet if I were a young builder starting out, it would be much more difficult.
Yeah, I like what you've done, at least with the bird's eye maple, and I usually like to use non-standard, you know, like walnut, and all kinds of different things that can be locally sourced.
Yeah.
In the parlance of the flat picker, that's what you call a cannon right there.
Really?
Oh yeah, that's the Haas right there. That's yeah, that one is that's a flat picker with a capital F right there.
Can't remember what to do with a flat pick.
Gee, you got enough there, Bob?
I know. Well, you may remember that when I was taking lessons from you, I showed up with like one.
Lousy pick, and you said you need to get yourself a bunch of picks.
Well, it's a good idea.
And I listened to my.
Yeah, you know, it's like different colors, you know. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, this thing really does put out sound.
Yeah.
And for that one, as a repair person, I've had, at least in the last maybe 4 or 5 years, people have started to bring their old 30s and 40s guitars to me, so I've been able to take measurements and sort of get things as exact as I can internally for that era of instrument.
Oh, the true oil on the neck again, huh?
Yeah. I can't conform to tradition in every way. I do the veneer on the back of the headstock too.
Oh, sure enough.
It's such a handsome instrument too. All these instruments are so pretty.
Smells like money.
That's a good flat picking song.
probably the trickier thing of making an acoustic is making it light enough to project, but not light so light that it bogs down and falls apart.
You got it right there.
Very nice. Very nice indeed.
Thank
How many instruments do you sell in a year, approximately?
you. 15 to 20.
And you didn't bring any of your fan fret.
No, I didn't.
You did you?
Yeah,
You did?
I've got an electric.
Oh, okay. How many? What's the? Is there any kind of a typical breakdown? I mean, do you get more traditional types of things like this, or do you get it's a kind of a little blend, or?
I'd say probably, at least in terms of my business, half is repair, half is custom building things. And out of the custom builds, I'd say 95% are the odd
Really?
fan fret,
Okay.
extra string.
Okay. That's
extra
interesting.
thing.
Yeah.
So, and most of those ship out when they're done. So
Right.
these things are sort of my fallback.
Right.
Not my
Right.
fallback, but I love this type of instrument as well. And I like to do at least 1 or 2 a year of a traditional style.
Uh-huh.
Just because that's where I started out, and that's what I wanted to do with my luthier
Right.
in the beginning.
But that being said, there's a lot of people that are doing traditional, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I think when you look at like the fan fret thing that you're doing, that, I mean, I don't know, but I would suspect there's probably less people that are doing that sort of a thing.
Yeah, I think there's more and more now. When I started doing them
Yeah.
15 years ago, there wasn't a whole lot of people doing fan
Yeah,
fret stuff. There was
yeah.
maybe 4 or 5 or 6 that I knew of at the
Yeah,
time,
yeah,
and now there's definitely more.
yeah.
I think there's more of a demand for maybe thinking a little bit outside of tradition,
Mhm,
at least the guitar.
Yeah.
So who knows where that's going to go? But I like doing this type of thing, but also I think in terms of my business, most of what I do is oddball
Yeah, yeah.
compared to this.
Mm-hmm. How about you? What's your extremes?
Well, right now I do a handful of guitars for myself every year. But the shabby chic stuff has kind of been keeping me busy. I don't take on a heck of a lot of projects, at least for the shabby chic stuff, just because it's not the most profitable thing in the world, and I do what I like with those. So I try to keep that at about 15 to 20 a year, and then a handful for myself. So that keeps me interested. If I feel like a slave when I do too much, you know.
Yeah.
So I try to, oh wow, look at that.
Yeah.
So I try to keep a good balance there.
I imagine a lot of the requests you get are for wedge bodies and beveled armrests for comfort.
Yeah, indeed. I get a lot of exactly that. Yeah, and the combination of wedge body and the armrest bevel.
Yeah.
A lot of folks with shoulder issues.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
where those sales come
Well,
from.
being of that age, I can really understand. I had when I decided I wanted to start playing guitar again. The guitar we had in the house was a 1979 Taylor that had been my wife's.
Mm-hmm.
And I picked it up, and I'd been playing mandolin, and I put that thing on my lap, and I felt like I was holding a refrigerator.
Yeah.
It just felt gigantic and really uncomfortable. And part of that is being an old guy. So I think, more and more people my age are wanting things that are comfortable to hold, either small stuff like parlors or bigger bodies, but with the wedge and the armrest.
Yeah, and that's what I'm told. The bigger bodied instruments that have the wedge just feel like smaller guitars. They feel like a little small guitar.
That's
got
amazing.
the air volume and all the good tone things that come with a big guitar.
Well, this is quite an impressive item here too.
This is a customer's guitar. It was just in the shop for a setup, so he let me borrow it for the day.
It's a beauty.
It's basically a half bass, half guitar. So the bottom 3 strings are EAD, the bottom 3 strings of a bass, and the top 5 are the top 5 of a guitar, A, D, G, B, E. And they plug into separate outputs.
Right.
So you plug into a bass amp and a guitar amp.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, I have a hard enough time with 6 myself, but
Oh, come on.
You know,
Really?
the look of the standard and bass tuners and the fan frets. It's just so great looking.
Definitely a lot of optical illusions happen when you're building this type of thing. Like the headstock's not just an angle, it's a compound angle to make up for the way the break angle across the strings break across the nut. A lot of little things that are sort of subtle things that you wouldn't, it's easy to get lost in.
I bet.
Oh, okay. I see. Okay, I got it. Sure. I've got it all figured out. Yeah.
And you've
no
got a
problem.
plexiglass plate on the back?
Yeah, that's a request customer wanted to be able to see all the.
That is so cool. So you can see all the pots and everything.
Yeah, spend a lot of time doing
That's a substantial name.
nerdy little tedious wiring, getting really pretty solder joints. So it's nice when somebody wants to
See him.
see that. Sort of thing.
So, tell me what the whole thing is behind the kind of the fan fret. What's the thinking with that?
Yeah, it's sort of the same. If you
Should
think
be
about
natural, if you well, yeah, go ahead and talk. I'll just.
well, you picture a soundboard on a piano.
Right.
The shorter strings.
Right,
Or
right.
the thin, narrow, high pitch. So ideally, there's an ideal scale length for a gauge of string tuned to a certain pitch.
Right.
So this is a little bit of a compromise in that ideally that low E string would probably be around a 34, but I've got it on about a 29 inch scale. So if I put a 34-inch scale and a 24-inch together, it just would be impossible to play. But it actually makes it long enough so that the E string intonates well. It's got enough tension on it to where it intonates and feels like it should be on that guitar. And if you put a bass string on a regular guitar, it just feels like spaghetti and doesn't function.
Right.
So this even works out on regular 6-string guitars. You know, the bridge is compensated and the frets are not. So if you get really crazy into it, the guitar is not in tune as you play. And this is just a little bit mathematically better way to do that.
Do you do fan frets on acoustics also?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I offer it as an option on any instrument, and it's recommended on extended range things.
Indeed, scale length seems to be a bit of a much more important thing than I think people give it credit for. And fan fret is just a great way to kind of harness that.
It's cool too. Like if you don't look at what you're playing, your fingers pretty much go to where
That's what I'm curious
you would
about.
find.
Yeah. Well, with the
This is a
extra
little-
few strings.
I can't
that's-
find my fingers don't know where to go on a regular, so I can't imagine that this would be anything but confusing for a guy like me.
Well, I mean, I think you'd figure it out. I have to spend some more time with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when they were making those sticks, the Emmett Chapman sticks, and somebody I know had one, and I picked it up, and after about 15 or 20 minutes, I said, okay, I think, if I wanted to really figure it out, I could figure it out. But the first time I looked at it, I thought,
Right.
what is this?
Well, it's definitely an adjustment period. Like
Yeah.
something like this, where it's
Yeah.
tuned like a bass and a guitar. The notes are pretty much in the same place
Right,
you expect to
right,
find them. So if
right.
you want a G, it's right on the 3rd fret.
Yeah,
So it's not as big of an adjustment as even adding like a 7-string. At least to my brain,
yeah,
where I'm sort of stuck in fretboard pattern land.
Well, your hand sort of wants to follow a non-linear path anyhow. I mean,
Yeah, as the farther away you reach,
Yeah,
the more.
indeed, yeah.
one thing I noticed going from mandolin to guitar is that the hand positions are actually kind of similar, even though you're spanning more frets because the frets are closer together. So what the note you want under your 3rd finger is often the same note, although on a different fret on the two instruments, and this is sort of an extension of that in a sense. I mean, it would obviously take me time to get used to it, but
I think I thought about ergonomics a lot too when I was at least designing this. The farther away you have to reach your hand,
yeah.
the more crimped your wrist is going to be. So I shifted everything over in, shortened the neck to 19 frets, so everything sort of shifts over to where you can actually
I mean,
comfortably
for
play it
things like
for
partial
extended
bar
periods of
chords, it
time.
feels very natural.
So how'd you figure out where to make it perpendicular? I've heard that's kind of the starting point.
The
for a
first
lot
few
of
I made
folks.
were in crazy spots. Like I think I made a 32-inch scale on the bass, and then maybe 25 on the guitar, and they were just unplayable because of where everything laid out. I try to find a happy balance. These are on about the 9th fret, that's perpendicular, but
It's very cool.
It's very
You should take a picture of it. It's
Actually,
cool.
I got the one in the back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
so
Let me just wander around and get some more.
Reminds me of a guy brought a harp guitar into my shop the other day.
Oh,
And
cool.
It kind of reminds me. It blew my mind trying to figure out how to do it. I couldn't wrap my head around it. But I bet if I tried and practiced,
I see, I could figure that out in a heartbeat, because all that is just you just got the open tones there,
Right.
you know. And I saw a film with Michael Hedges playing on it, and it was unbelievable what he was doing with it.
it definitely takes an adjustment, much like anything. If you're going to do something that's different, which I like, if you're sort of in a rut as a guitar player, which happens to everyone at some point, I think, then doing something like this is a good way to get out of that, just because it forces you to think about all the parts of the music and how they're fitting together. You see where the bass has to land rhythmically. If the bass isn't there, people start to, something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Start to look around.
That's right.
So, I know a lot of people that they'll have loop pedals plugged in the back of the bed.
Right.
Loop a bass part, or if they're sitting at the computer, they have access to a guitar and a bass, and they don't have to keep switching back and forth.
So that is pretty interesting. You have two outputs.
Mm-hmm.
Are they?
Are they stereo?
Can you have everything come out of one? Or is
Yeah,
it switchable?
there's an option that I can add, so it switches everything to one mono output. There's a pickup that I get Ken Armstrong to make that works a little better for that. It's one single pickup with two separate sides that can be flipped on in stereo.
One of the reasons I got us all together is I think that this part of the country is kind of a special place in terms of music and musical instruments. And I was thinking about who from around here over time has there been who had proficiency on stringed instruments. And just a quick list I came up with, Blind Boy Fuller, Carolina Chocolate Drops, Emmylou Harris, the Squirrel Nut Zippers, Doug Clark and the Hot Nuts, the Sponge Tones, the Red Clay Ramblers, Etta Baker, James Taylor, Earl Scruggs, the Connells, Elizabeth Cotton, Link Ray, Tal Farlow, Charlie Poole and North Carolina Ramblers, and Doc Watson, to name just a few. That's an incredible range of people playing stringed instruments in this part of the world. And as I looked further, non-stringed musicians, I said, gee, except for Tal Farlow, there doesn't seem to be much jazz happening. But then I looked at non-string players, and Billy Taylor, Thelonious Monk, John Coltrane, and Dizzy Gillespie are all from around here.
That's right. Billy Strayhorn too, yeah.
So it's there's an incredible richness, and has any of that influenced your musical tastes or the way you approach instruments? Or I think we all kind of soak it into our pores without even realizing it sometimes. Now you're a native of North Carolina, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
You are too.
Yeah.
Okay, so and we're outsiders who've been here a long time.
Yeah, upstate New York for me.
Yeah, and Massachusetts for me,
Yeah.
but I've been here 35 years. So, especially for you natives, has all that kind of soaked into your pores at all? The fact that there's been so much music here for such a long time? Has it influenced either your personal tastes in music or the way you build guitars?
Well, probably. I'm sure it's an unconscious thing for me. I didn't consciously set out and say, oh my, well, Doc Watson from the mountains, I should build a beautiful dreadnought to enhance that finger style.
He went to school right in Raleigh.
Oh, indeed.
For 4
Yeah,
years.
sure enough. Yeah, I did too. But I'm sure I grew up in Rocky Mount, which is where Thelonious Monk's from.
Yeah.
So it's quite celebrated there. But yeah, I think it's got to be an unconscious thing. It's not something you set out to do. But yeah, if you're surrounded by genius, that's got to soak in.
Well said. Your thoughts, Wes?
I don't know. It's tough to say that there's a culture of genius to this area, which obviously there's a lot of people that do amazing things, but I don't know what it is. I definitely didn't set out to try to do anything necessarily because of the heritage of the area, necessarily, at least consciously. But yeah, I definitely think there is something to the fact that just in the middle of the country, there's sort of a confluence of different things coming together, and that's probably where, maybe right in the place where you have freedom to be a little bit different, and I don't know, maybe that's part of it.
Well, you know, the state motto is esse quam videre, which means
To be rather than
to
to see,
be
right?
rather than to seem. And, you know, when I started doing some background, I really felt that all of you guys kind of embody that. You know, that there's a kind of a genuineness. In fact, I saw a quote, Danny, off of your Guitar Heel album. One of the guys said about you. I don't know that I have the quote right in front of me, but maybe I might actually.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful. It fit that description. I believe if ever there was a guitarist and musician who belonged on the list of real guitar heroes, as opposed to the manufactured and hyped ones, it's Danny Gotham. John Krug said that about you.
Yeah, well, I paid him to say that.
And I didn't find a specific quote about you guys, but you know, in looking at your work, there's a real honesty to it that I really admire. And again, you probably didn't say, I think I'll live up to the state motto, but I think you're doing it very much. And you know, what do you have any thoughts about that? Your work in relation
Well,
to that?
that's quite a nice compliment, I think. But yeah,
Thanks,
I
Bob.
haven't really thought quite much about it. But you know, I know I'm me, and I got to be me. I can't be anybody else. So, you know. Yeah, I don't know quite what to say about that.
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
I definitely think that I have sort of a drive, maybe a little bit beyond a healthy one, for perfecting things. I've always been a little bit OCD about everything, and I think that, at least in terms of how my family thinks of what I found, they think it's pretty ideal for my personality to have fallen into something where it requires that type of personality. You know.
What kind of I'm a psychologist by training, so what things about you as an individual do you think make it either easier or harder to do the kind of work you do?
Well, it definitely doesn't make it easier to do. I think if you're working on something that you're always going to screw up something, and you either try to cover your tracks or you do it again and do it right. And I think that I'm more prone to, I won't allow myself to sort of cover the tracks. I don't want to. And I think that's a curse of the luthier in a way.
Well, and that's exactly what I'm talking about.
It really
the
is.
esse quam videre.
You have to, if you're out on the ledge, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. But if you own those mistakes, you know, I think you get a lot of respect for that. To do your own thing is difficult, but you know, if that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do. You know, you can't be somebody else.
To make it be that way rather than to seem, I guess.
Right, that's exactly right.
But I don't know if that's necessarily a regional thing. You know, there's a lot of great people that are building things, but there are in this area. Surprising, at least that I've met. There's a lot of people around here that are at least somewhat successful in doing this type of thing.
Mm-hmm. I think the area is pretty progressive too. People have a pretty healthy attitude about accepting different points of view in this section of the country. Of course, you obviously have some extreme views as well. But those coming together, I think, does build kind of a nice open-mindedness that helps stuff like this thrive, I think.
But I think for me, I have customers, you know, who are in Sweden or whatever that are buying these fan fret multi-string things, and then I have a guy that sort of a good old boy that brings his bluegrass guitar in to get repaired. So there's a lot of convergence of culture happening around.
Yeah, that's always fun when that happens. When I was living in Nashville, I remember the first time I went to a place called the Station Inn, and some more seasoned people took me there, and we walk in and I say, this looks like it could be a mistake. There are these really heavy-duty bikers playing pool in the front room. I'm thinking, man, this looks like a rough place. And then we go into the back room where the music is, and there were more bikers, but there were fraternity guys, and there were people from the old age home next door. Mm-hmm. It was the most extensive cross-section of people I've ever seen in my life. And once the music started playing, all the differences just evaporated. and people were just into the music. It was really great fun. And I think you're right. The mix of this area provides opportunities for that sort of mixing as well. You know, another thing I always wonder about, just because of my own interests, is what role did people believing in you play in your ability to pursue lutherie? I find that for most of us, we can usually really have a sense that certain people believing in us in a certain time really made a difference. Does that ring true to you guys?
I think for me that of course your family members and whatnot are going to encourage you to believe in you, but as a guitar maker in the world of lutherie, people do not believe in you when you are starting out. They'll say, they're looking forward to throwing you down about everything. So at least in terms of guitar store, if you're first getting started, if you make a mistake and try to sell it, then people are going to call you on it every time. So it's pretty brutal, at least getting started.
I bet.
I would wholeheartedly agree to that. It's the lack of support that has driven me to do better. There's nobody to pat you on the back and say, "Oh, good job." They really do. They'll tell you, "No, this finished."
I get a Yamaha. It looks better than that.
Exactly.
That sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, this is $100 guitar. Why? This is better than what you got.
Yeah.
So that can be quite a driver, and I think that guided me more than pats on the back.
Well, there's a lot of support too. I don't know how to exactly draw the two views together, but between colleagues in this business, I think, especially for doing the fan fret thing, Ralph Novak really helped me out in the beginning when I was starting. He sort of had the patent on the fan fret design, and he put a link to my site on his website, and he was very helpful in talking to me through a lot of the technical issues, and obviously I was going to be somewhat his competition. I don't know if I don't really think that luthiers really think of each other as direct competition in a way, because everything's so individualized. It's like which band is better than the other. You can't really, So in some ways, it's more friendly than it would be if it was like, Coke versus Pepsi kind of thing.
Are there any questions I should have asked that I didn't? Anything that you think is really important or that characterizes your philosophy or your approach that we haven't had a chance to talk about?
I'm drawing a blank.
That's fine. That's fine. Good.
I think in a broader view, I don't know if this has any meaning or any particular bearing on what I do, but I think that there's lifespans for musical instruments. Sort of, 100 years ago there was mandolin orchestras. Maybe 50 years later everyone plays saxophone. Now we're in the guitar era, and I think we're sort of reaching the end of the guitar era in a way that people want to branch out and do things like baritone and try to find a little bit different voices. Maybe the world of guitar has seen its heyday. I'm not saying it's going to go away, but the world of regular guitar is sort of, I think people may be searching for something a little bit different.
Like a varnish ukulele or a fan fret.
A varnish ukulele,
that's right.
Fan fret guitar.
I think you hit it right on the head, because you've got that, and here you are with you can put a baritone guitar out there for $800. I mean, those are specialty things. Those are if you're talking about I remember, you're old enough to remember Gurion, right?
Yeah.
The reason why I remember Gurion guitars was because I'm like 58, all right, so I can remember when I was a kid, you went down the music store, you had Fenders and Gibsons for electrics, you had Guilds and Martins for acoustics,
Right.
Fender amplifiers, Ampeg bass amp. That was about it. I mean, there's a little more, but basically that was it. But I remember Gurion was the first one to come down the pike, and it was this big deal. It was like, a handmade guitar. And now you look back at that, and it's like, are you kidding me? There's like hundreds of people that are building
That's right.
guitars like that. But what Wes said, that rings a note with me, because I think what's happening is people are starting to get a little more specialized. They're doing things that just aren't 6-string acoustics or 6 strings along. You got fan fret, you got baritones. People are building hybrid instruments like harp guitars or I mean, I've seen some real strange birds like Merle Travis's son, what's his name? Tom Bresch has the flip-flop guitar. It's a nylon on one side. You ever seen this?
That
Yeah,
goes
it's
way back. There was a guy.
Yeah.
There was something called I can't remember what it was called, a torturo something or other, that was a mandolin on one side and a guitar on the other side, built in like the 1920s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, back in you're talking about the mandolin orchestra days. I mean, you know this. And if you look at some of these instruments from that era, you get banjo ukes, you got uke banjos, you got national instruments that are taking like you see like it looks like a dobro. It's got a 5-string neck on it, and it's like and it's because there were so many people who were playing mandolins and banjos that they wanted to get like a broader kind of swath out there. So you're right. I mean,
I don't think the guitar's ever going to go away, but
no, you're right.
maybe
Absolutely.
not the days of everybody playing guitars. Probably.
Well, and I think the fact of the matter is there's enough people building really, really fine, acoustic guitars. I mean, when I'm talking about Gurion back then, there was nobody doing that back then.
Exactly. People can build those specialized
Yeah.
instruments.
Yeah. I mean,
Speaking of Michael Gurion, those bridge pins right there came from.
really?
Yeah.
No kidding.
He's become basically a parts supplier.
Yeah.
Can I get some inlay material from
Yeah.
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 Now you were talking about Samaji. I got a friend named Ed Gerhard. He's brilliant steel string.
Sure, yeah.
And he's got a Breedlove model named after him now, I believe.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
I remember playing one of those. It was back in the early '90s, I believe, and it just knocked my socks off. It's just incredible, instruments. But anyway.
The
I'm not going
quality
anywhere.
of instruments available now is really astounding.
Oh, it's amazing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Which has to be, sort of good news. Good news in terms of your aspirations, but it must also make your life much more challenging.
Yeah, a blessing and a curse.
Because there's so much out there that is outstanding. Although I think, what I've seen from you guys here today, I think compete with anything out there. Certainly in relative price, I think you guys beat everything by a mile.
Yeah, the standards today are just absolutely astronomical, and it's in the end it's great for the business and for the playing community as a whole. But yeah, it's taxing. It's taxing on the luthier.
Did either of you have a plan B? Did you say I'm going to give this a certain number of years, and I'm going to go back to landscape gardening if this doesn't work?
This is my plan B.
Well, it's working well.
Yeah, so far so good. I can always, I don't know, I haven't really kept my skills up. I have an engineering degree, and I wrote software for a number of years, but those skills have kind of dwindled, so I guess this is now plan A.
I guess the engineering training must have come in handy, though, for...
Well, it was chemical engineering, so not a lot of translation.
Yeah.
Actually, unfortunately, I'm having to learn a lot.
Maybe
of
for
the
adhesive
statics and that
formulations or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways this is my plan B as well. It started out as a hobby, something I loved and was going to do no matter what, and then slowly overtake everything else.
I have to say, I admire you guys having the courage to go with plan B and doing it with such style. You deserve a lot of credit for that.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been a good ride so far.
Being a musician is awful. And being a luthier is even worse.
You got to work for musicians, yeah.
I mean, at least I can teach.
Right.
I mean,
all you have to do keep a lot of irons in the fire. I think I do a lot.
Yeah.
I repair, obviously, and then I've got a student now that's learning how to, teaching to make acoustic instruments and do repair work, and then also do some contract work with Moog. I built their lap steels and
Cool.
sort of funky stuff from them.
Good deal.
So
A lot of
flexibility and creativity.
Yeah, you really can't. I mean, I think I count on both hands the number of people out there who make a living only doing this.
Yeah.
You have to branch out.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to.